Okay, so watch me do this remix. It's a pretty straightforward process. Basically, I am going to start by taking some of the shorts that I cut of my mixed color and tacking them onto the end of this basically chunk of mixed color. So this is an end that came from my initial color mixes. And if you watched any of the stuff that goes with this video, you'll see how I cut off these short sections from the pre-mixed batches or the hand mixed batches that I did previously to take out those things that had little specks of white or yellow or red still in them, basically just chunks of unmixed color. And so I have about 75, 80 grams worth of hand mixed color chunks that I'm punting up here. And I am going to just get them all gathered up into a nice little workable section. I've basically got them all stuck on here. They're just nicely welded on. Don't bump into anything at this stage or they're all going to fall off and you have to go and stick them back on again. But essentially what I'm going to do is just get them all warm enough to move at this point, hot enough to move, and I will start the remixing process. So you'll see basically I'm just going to melt them in and I'm going to twist it up until it's a nice gather that I can keep remixing until I feel confident that those little scraps in there of white or yellow or red are fully mixed in. Just wanted to make a note here and say you probably will notice me working on the ends mostly at this first stage. At least I can pour lots of heat into the center, but it's trickier to get the heat into those ends because those sharp points, those tight top tip points, anything that's sticking out, anything that's small is generally going to want to burn first. And of course, one of the main tasks in the color mixing is to mess up the color as little as possible. Basically, you want to not baby it, but you don't want to abuse it, which means you have to be careful of how hot everything is getting because the color just burns when it gets too hot. And so if a little piece is sticking out, you can imagine it's going to get hot first. There's less surface area for the flame to heat up. And so it's reaching that boiling temperature before the rest of the glass does. And that's essentially why you're going to see me working those fine points, those little protruding bits first. And it's also why you'll see me move the glass so much. Basically, the same concept for a sharp point or a little thing that's sticking out goes for glass that isn't moving. If you don't keep changing where the glass is being heated, then you're going to overheat a certain section of the glass and you're more likely to burn it. And so at this point in the remixing process, I'm fully in the swing of things. I am getting the heat soaked in there. I am basically just stretching it out a little bit and folding it over on itself. And what that's doing is basically taking pixels and duplicating them. So if you think of each line of that rod being a pixel and you stretch it out and you fold it over, you're taking those pixels and laying them over themselves. And so that's basically the process that I'm going through whenever I'm mixing the color, is just trying to keep that gather in the center of what I'm doing, heating it up enough to stretch it and fold it, heating it up enough to twist it, and just going through that process over and over until I feel the color is fully mixed. So at this point, I'm feeling satisfied with how much twisting and folding that I've done. And so I'm moving on to just getting the shape of the color that is ideal for pulling it, for resizing it into rod that we can use to, paint onto tubing or make stick stack tubing or whatever you want to use it for. And so now I'm focused on getting this nice football shape. I'm getting that football shape because that's going to allow me to pour as much heat into the center as I need, and it's going to let that heat taper out into the ends towards the handles. And so when I go and stretch it, all that heat's going to be in the center, and it's just going to go from a football to a straight line. And so at this point in the process, I am satisfied with the shape. I'm satisfied with how much heat there is in the glass. And I'm simply getting it as close as possible, as ready as possible for getting stretched out. And so I'm just pouring more and more heat into that blob, into that football shaped gather of color to wait for it to basically the glass is going to fall out of itself. And when the heat is in the center, it's going to retain that heat mass and it's going to allow you to work the football, work that section in chunks. Basically, you want to get those handles, the basically the part that's cooling down to the diameter that you want it. And once you can see that that is set there, and if you pull on the rest of it, that's not going to stretch out, then you can pull the rest of it, and you're essentially just evening out the chunk of glass that you've got. And that's all there is to it.